Everyone thought he was just the mechanic. He came in every morning at 7 a.m. sharp. Same worn boots, same faded denim jacket over a greasy uniform with the name Jack stitched above the pocket. His hands were calloused, strong, always working, never shaking. People passed by him at the corporate garage without a second thought. He was invisible to executives in tailored suits who parked their shiny black sedans and never made eye contact. That was fine by Jack. He wasn't there to be noticed. Not anymore. But Jack saw everything, from the CEO's entourage walking with robotic precision to the subtle way one of the security guards started arriving early without reason. Jack noticed. He always noticed. It was a habit he couldn't shake. Even after all these years, nobody knew Jack had once been someone else. A ghost. A shadow. A name whispered in dark corridors of conflict zones no news outlet dared to cover. Before this quiet life of socket wrenches and oil changes, Jack had been a Tier 1 operator in a Black Ops division that officially didn't exist. He had buried that past after his wife died in a car bombing meant for him. She wasn't supposed to be in that car. She was just dropping off lunch, just being kind. After that, Jack walked away from the government, from the world. He found work in the outskirts of Denver, Colorado, at a luxury automotive center owned by a global tech conglomerate. The CEO, Claire Wrenford, had never spoken to him directly, but he'd seen her up close, elegant, driven, sharp. Her name was on every headline about green energy breakthroughs and humanitarian ventures. Jack respected her, not because of her money or influence, but because he could see the weight she carried. The kind only those who've seen death and betrayal understood. It was a Thursday when it all began. The day had started like any other. Jack was replacing a timing belt on an executive's car, humming quietly to the rhythm of the torque wrench, when the first unusual detail caught his attention. Claire's personal driver, Darren, wasn't at his usual post by the lobby entrance. A new face stood in his place, with mirrored sunglasses and a slightly bulging coat. Jack narrowed his eyes. Security detail? Possibly. But Darren never missed a day, not in 3 years. Something was off. He followed the new driver with his eyes. Claire exited the building moments later, accompanied by 2 assistants. She looked composed, but Jack noticed the twitch in her fingers. Her eyes scanned the parking lot too quickly, as if she already sensed something wasn't right. She got in the back of the armored sedan. The doors shut. The new driver glanced into the rearview mirror and didn't adjust it properly. Amateurs. Never did. As the car pulled away, Jack felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He reached for a clean rag, wiped the grease from his hands, and moved with calculated calm to the corner of the garage where the CCTV monitors were mounted. He wasn't supposed to have access, but rules had never stopped Jack. He watched as the sedan drove toward the main gate. But instead of turning right toward the highway, it turned left toward the industrial docks. That wasn't her route. Jack didn't hesitate. He moved faster than anyone had ever seen him. He grabbed the black duffel from under his workbench, one he hadn't touched in years. Inside were tools no mechanic would ever need. He moved like a man returning to a language he once spoke fluently. 10 minutes later, Jack was on his motorcycle, helmet tight, tailing the car through side streets he knew better than Google Maps ever could. Claire was in danger. He didn't need proof. He could feel it in the marrow of his bones. The sun was setting by the time he saw them stop. A warehouse. Abandoned. No surveillance. No traffic. Perfect for a quiet extraction or execution. Jack parked several blocks away, concealed the bike, and approached silently on foot. His steps made no sound. He moved through the shadows with ghost-like precision, pulling out a modified pair of night vision goggles and scanning the perimeter. 3 men outside, 1 on the roof with a rifle, 2 at the main door with tactical gear. These weren't your everyday thugs. Inside, Claire was being led through the dusty corridors by another 2 men. One of them carried a briefcase. The other held a stun gun. Jack's heart pounded not from fear, but from memory. This was who he used to be. This was the world he'd tried to escape. But you never really leave it, do you? Some doors don't stay shut forever. He took out the rooftop guard first silently, surgically. Then he moved through the shadows like death itself, disabling the perimeter one by one without a sound. Each takedown was fast, efficient. Jack didn't need to think. His body remembered. His mind had never forgotten. Then he entered the warehouse. And locked the door behind him. Asterisk. Jack moved through the warehouse like he belonged there. No hesitation, no wasted steps. The interior smelled of rust and damp cement. Overhead lights flickered, barely functioning. The hum of old generators echoed from somewhere deep within. Jack counted every second, every shadow, every footstep bouncing off the concrete walls. Down the hallway, he heard muffled voices, Claire, and two men. He pressed himself against the wall, slid a compact mirror from his pocket, and angled it to reflect what was ahead. The CEO stood with her back straight, arms bound behind her. Blood on her temple. Her lip was split, but her eyes, those eyes were defiant. In front of her, one of the men was pacing, arguing into a burner phone. No, she won't talk. The man snapped. Not yet. She's tougher than she looks. But we'll get what we need. Jack recognized him. Marco DeZale. Former private contractor turned black market mercenary. Once worked for Jack's old team before he was dishonorably discharged for going rogue. A sadist. He wasn't here for money. He was here for revenge. And leverage. Jack's jaw tightened. Claire had made powerful enemies. Her clean energy revolution was undercutting entire oil empires. Her whistleblower testimony had ruined several dirty politicians. Jack had respected her from afar, but now he realized this wasn't just a kidnapping. This was war, and she was the bait. Jack stepped into the open. Let her go, Marco. The two men froze. Claire's eyes widened. Marco turned slowly, disbelief and amusement spreading across his face. Well, I'll be damned. Jack Carter, the ghost himself. Jack didn't flinch. You always did enjoy hurting people who couldn't fight back. Marco laughed. You? A mechanic now? That's rich. What's the matter? Retirement package didn't work out. Jack took one step forward. Last chance. Let her go and walk away. No bodies, no blood. Marco shook his head. Still noble. Still boring. Then everything moved fast. Marco reached for his gun. Jack was already moving. A flick of his wrist-throwing knife. Marco's hand went. Limp gun clattered to the floor. The second man lunged. Jack dropped low, sweeping his legs. Out from under him, delivering a precision strike to the throat. The man choked and crumpled. Jack grabbed Claire, cutting through her zip ties in one swift motion. Can you walk? Claire nodded, still stunned. What are you? Later, Jack said. We need to move. But it wasn't over. From behind them, a steel door slammed open. 4 more armed men poured in, shouting. Jack shoved Claire behind a metal crate and drew his suppressed pistol. The firefight was short but brutal. Jack was precise, calculated. Each shot found its mark. He used cover, bounced light off his mirror to mislead their aim, and always moved before they could pin him down. Claire watched him with disbelief. He wasn't a mechanic. He was a weapon. Once the last man dropped, silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Jack exhaled slowly, checked his ammo, then turned to her. We've got about 5 minutes before someone else shows up. Do you have a panic signal? Anything that calls in your real security? Claire nodded and tapped her bracelet. Encrypted GPS beacon. Activated now, but it'll take time. Then, we keep moving, Jack said, guiding her toward the back exit. But she stopped him. Why are you doing this? Who are you? He looked at her, eyes unreadable. I used to protect people. Then I stopped. Now I'm just doing what I should have done all along. She hesitated, then nodded. They moved. As they emerged into the night, a black SUV screeched to a halt in front of them. Claire flinched, but Jack raised a hand. "Friendlies," he said. Two former teammates of Jack's, Eric and Lena, stepped out. Claire's eyes widened again. "You called backup?" Jack shook his head. "Didn't have to. They've been watching me ever since I disappeared. Guess I finally gave them a reason to show up." Lena smiled. "You always said you were done, Jack. But people like us, we don't retire. We just go quiet until it matters." Eric added, "And it matters now." They loaded Claire into the vehicle, and Jack sat beside her, blood on his hands, eyes still alert. The safe house was 30 miles outside the city, but Jack knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The safe house wasn't much to look at, just a weathered cabin tucked in the pines beyond a private service road. No internet, no cell towers nearby, just radio, firewood, and silence. It was perfect. Jack had chosen it years ago when he still thought he'd never need it again. Claire sat in front of the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket, nursing a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Her injuries were cleaned and bandaged, thanks to Lena's practiced hands, but her expression hadn't softened. She was still in shock, less from the kidnapping and more from Jack. She watched him as he cleaned and reassembled a pistol on the table beside her. Every movement was surgical, deliberate. His eyes were sharp, but distant, like someone who never really left the battlefield. "I Googled you," she said quietly, finally breaking the silence. Jack didn't look up. "That's a bad idea. I had to know. After what I saw, you were more than a soldier. You led Omega Unit, the one that went dark after Southfall." He froze for a split second, then resumed loading the magazine. "You read classified files?" he asked. "I have clearance," Claire replied. "After what I've built, they had to give me access to protect myself." Jack set the weapon down and looked her in the eyes. "Then you know what happened in Southfall?" She nodded. "Your team was framed. 2 of your men died, you vanished, and someone made sure your name was buried." Jack's jaw tightened. "They killed my wife." "She was the message," Claire's voice trembled. "I'm sorry." Jack leaned back in the chair, his voice low. "I thought I could disappear. I thought fixing cars and living in silence would be enough. But you you brought the shadows back." Claire frowned. "I didn't ask to be kidnapped." "No," Jack said, "but someone did. And I think you know why." She hesitated, then stood and walked over to her briefcase. She opened a hidden compartment and pulled out a thin tablet. 3 weeks ago, my team discovered a pattern in a string of shell companies tied to infrastructure sabotage across Eastern Europe. We traced it back to someone buried in the intelligence world. Someone with access, funds, and the power to make people disappear. "Who?" Jack asked. Claire tapped the screen and turned it toward him. The photo made Jack's blood run cold. "Sebastian Vorn," Claire said. "Black operations strategist, former Pentagon asset. Presumed dead 10 years ago." "He's not dead," Jack whispered. "You know him?" Claire asked. Jack stared at the screen. "He was my handler. He gave the order at Southfall." Claire's breath caught. "He burned your team?" she asked. Jack nodded slowly. "And now he's cleaning up the rest." Silence thickened between them. Claire set the tablet down. "He's behind the attack. I've been working on technology that could dismantle every oil pipeline in the world digitally, quietly, permanently. I was going to reveal it next quarter. Now I know why they want me gone." Jack stood and looked out the window into the trees. "This isn't just about money. This is about power. Control. He's building something, and you're in the way." Claire crossed her arms. "So what now?" Jack turned to face her. "Now we stop pretending you're safe." Eric and Lena entered the room, both grim-faced. Eric spoke first. "We just intercepted encrypted chatter. Vaughn's men are cleaning up. 2 of Claire's board members are missing. One of her lawyers was killed in a staged mugging. They're sending a message. Claire turned pale. They're erasing my life. Jack picked up the weapon he'd cleaned, checked the chamber, then holstered it beneath his jacket. No, he said. They're trying to. He walked over to the desk, opened his duffel bag, and pulled out a hard drive. This has everything. From Southfall, names, missions, voice recordings. Things I wasn't supposed to keep. Claire looked at it. You kept proof? I never stopped looking for Vaughn, Jack said. I just stopped believing I'd ever find him alive. She stepped closer. Then we do this together. Jack raised an eyebrow. Claire added firmly, You saved me. Now let me help you finish what he started. Jack looked at her, then at the fire crackling behind them. And for the first time in 10 years, he nodded. The next morning, the mountains were buried in mist. Cold, silent, and still. But inside the safe house, war was already being planned. Claire had barely slept, though she pretended otherwise. Her bruises had faded slightly, but something deeper had shifted in her. She no longer looked like a CEO merely trying to survive. She looked like a woman ready to strike back. Jack had laid out maps, blueprints, and encrypted files across the table like a battle map. Eric stood nearby with comms gear spread out, and Lena was loading equipment with military precision. Claire stood beside Jack, absorbing it all. What exactly is this place? She asked, pointing to a marked facility on the map, an industrial compound near the Utah border. Off-grid intel archive, Jack said. Unlisted, unregistered, protected by private mercs. Vaughn uses it as a vault for blackmail, tech-in, experimental data. I tried to hit it once years ago, but it was suicide back then. And now? She asked. Jack met her eyes. Now we have motive intel and someone they underestimated. Claire folded her arms. Me, Jack nodded. They thought you were just the scientist, just the figurehead. But they forgot when you corner someone smart, you don't get silence. You get strategy. Claire smirked slightly. Eric spoke up. We can't walk in the front door. But if we cut power to the outer fence and jam their cameras with EMP bursts, we'll have exactly 5 minutes before they revert to manual. 5 minutes? Claire asked. Jack was already strapping on a vest. We only need 3. The team moved out at dawn. Jack rode in the lead vehicle, a matte black SUV with military-grade plating. Claire sat beside him, suited in lightweight tactical gear she'd never thought she'd wear in her life. She clutched a flash drive tightly in one gloved hand. On it, the final override code that would allow them to upload Jack's Southfall files directly into every global news network in under 60 seconds, if they could get inside the compound. If they could stay alive long enough. As they approached the perimeter, Eric's voice came through the radio. Cutting grid, now. A brief flicker of darkness washed over the compound ahead. Security lights blinked off. The hum of the electric fence ceased. Jack hit the gas. The SUV surged forward, smashing through the back fence and skidding across gravel. Before the guards could react, Lena tossed the first EMP charge. Drones on the roof went blind. Jack leapt from the vehicle before it even stopped moving. Weapon drawn, gunfire erupted. Claire stayed low, moving as Jack had trained her. Tight corners. No wasted movement. Always check blind spots. She couldn't believe how different she felt. A week ago, she was giving TED Talks about global energy. Now she was running through a kill zone beside a ghost from the past. Inside the compound, Jack moved like smoke, deadly and calm. 2 guards tried to flank him. He dropped one with a headshot, disarmed the other with a knee to the elbow, then knocked him unconscious. Claire reached the control room. She slammed the drive into the master console and typed quickly. The file. Decrypted. 1 button remained. Broadcast to global channels. Confirm. She hesitated for just one heartbeat. Was this too much? Too dangerous? Jack's voice cut through. Now, Claire. She hit the key. The screen flashed. A loading bar raced across. Then a wall of images and documents filled the screen's covert. Missions, wire transfers, assassinations, photos of Vorn at private meetings with foreign powers. Claire watched the first red blinking notification hit a major news network, then another, and another. The truth was out. Jack appeared at her side. Blood on his sleeve, breathing hard. We need to go. They'll torch this place. Claire nodded, grabbed the drive, and followed him out. As they escaped through the service tunnel, explosions began behind them. Fire tore through the compound. A black SUV sped past in the opposite direction. Inside it, a man with a scar over one eye watched the flames. Sebastian VORN. Back at the safe house, Claire stood outside under the stars. Her life, her company, was about to explode with headlines. But instead of fear, she felt peace, purpose. The world would know the truth now. And she wasn't alone anymore. Jack joined her silently. She turned. You saw him, didn't you? Jack nodded. He was there, watching us burn his secrets. He'll come for us. Jack looked out at the dark woods. Then we'll be ready. Claire stepped closer. You said you used to protect people. What if I asked you to stay and protect more than just me? Jack's voice was soft. You wouldn't be asking me to protect. You'd be asking me to fight again. Claire reached out, gently placing her hand on his. Not for revenge, for something better. Jack stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, finally, he nodded. And in that quiet moment under the night sky, the mechanic disappeared and the warrior returned. 3 days later, Jack stood alone in the rain. He was outside a condemned mansion tucked deep in the Virginia woods, a place few knew existed and fewer had ever walked away from. This was Vorn's stronghold, not a military base, not a fortress, but a house full of ghosts, of plans, of silence thick enough to suffocate. Inside that house were answers and an end. Claire hadn't wanted him to come alone. But she understood. This wasn't just about justice. This was personal. The front door creaked as Jack stepped inside. He moved through the house quietly, his boots soaking the old carpet. Rainwater dripped from the edge of his collar. The hall was lined with faded portraits and empty picture frames. It reeked of a man who lived surrounded by power, yet clung to nothing. In the study, he found him. Sebastian Vorn sat in a leather chair, sipping whiskey. His hair was grayer, his face thinner, but the eyes were still sharp, still venomous. You're late, Vorn said, as if Jack had arrived for a business meeting. Jack didn't sit. You killed my wife. Vorn nodded slowly. Yes, but she wasn't the target. And you already knew that. You framed my team. Burned Southfall. Disappeared me. I kept the balance, Vorn replied calmly. You were loyal. Then you became inconvenient. Jack's jaw clenched. And Claire? She was naive. She thought she could change the world. You and I both know the world doesn't change. It eats visionaries and rewards monsters. Jack raised his pistol. Then let's test your theory. But Vorn didn't flinch. Go ahead, kill me. You'll still lose. I've spread my legacy in places you can't reach. Jack stepped closer. That's the difference between us. You see people as pawns. I see them as purpose. He fired. One shot, clean, quiet. Vorn slumped back in the chair, blood spreading across his chest. No speeches. No last words. Just silence. Jack didn't linger. He set fire to the study files, papers, ledgers, computers. Every trace of Vorn's private empire went up in flames as Jack walked away. The rain hissed against the smoke. He didn't look back. Claire watched the news in stunned silence. The story had broken wide. Jack's files had shattered the myth of untouchable corruption. Politicians resigned. Generals were arrested. Vaughan's name was whispered in committee hearings that were no longer behind closed doors. But the man himself? Gone. Jack had left a Tia. Single message on her phone. No location. No signature. Just his voice. "It's done. You're safe. Stay loud. I'll be watching." She smiled through her tears. Claire stood before the board of her company the next morning. No suit. No press. Advisors. Just her voice. And her truth. "I was kidnapped because I was on the verge of changing everything," she began. "And I was saved by the one person this world overlooked, a man who walked away from war and only returned to stop another. We owe him our future. We owe each other better than silence." The board voted unanimously. Claire would remain CEO, and the Green Initiative would launch within weeks. The world was watching. Now months passed. The world began to change. Jack never returned to the auto garage. His locker remained untouched. Some believed he died. Others believed he was living quietly somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. But Claire knew better. Sometimes she would receive a small envelope in the mail. No return address. No words, just a single photo. Her stepping into a building. Her giving a speech. Her smiling with children during a charity visit. All taken from afar. She always smiled when she saw them. And when the world got too loud, or the danger crept too close, she would step outside her balcony and whisper, "Wherever you are, thank you." And somewhere, in a place no one could find, a man with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much would hear her. And quietly, silently, he would whisper back, still watching,